hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for this session. My name's Jen Hartley. I'm Director of Invest Newcastle, and I've been a Dynamo board member, advisory board member since 2015. I know I don't look old enough, but right from the beginning. So this session is all about automation and service delivery. So who doesn't want to save money, make their staff happier, and provide a more accurate and stable service? Well, I think everyone does. But thankfully, I've got Simon at Greenwood and Mark Thompson from CGI, who's going to tell us how we can do that. During their talk, they're going to talk about the future of work, how a combination of emerging technology, including intelligent automation, will help drive value and improve customer and staff experience. They're going to talk about the different ways that organisations can start off on their journey, including business processes with robotic process automation. So with predictions that the future workforce is going to be made up both of human workers, but also from virtual workers. And this will provide a hybrid workforce that will deliver more value and more efficient services. So I think this session is going to follow on really nicely from those of you who's seen Aaron Harris's talk from Sage just now. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Mark and Simon. So enjoy the session, everyone. Thanks.
Great, thanks very much, Jen. So just first of all, a bit of an introduction to myself. My name's Mark Thompson. I'm a director in CGI, and I've got two main roles. For the last 26 years, I've been working in and around the utility sector. And more recently, in the last 6 months, I have been taking a role within CGI to develop the wider northeast area of our business, because I live up in the northeast in Newcastle. And the current focus for me is around central and local government, healthcare, but also anyone that's got sort of a customer-centric focus or a service delivery objective. And I'm here today to introduce CGI in the context of this talk about intelligent automation. So you'll have seen on the screen before, there was something in the top left called Respond, Rebound, Reinvent. And this is the CGI strapline for how we've gone about the approach to dealing with the pandemic. And that's both from an internal perspective, but also in terms of how we've helped our clients. And we'll certainly bring some elements of that as we move forward. So we'll go into the intro bit, set a little bit of a context around how we're responding to COVID through the 3 Rs. Simon will then pick up and talk about some global technology impacts as a result of months, and then focus the main subject area around intelligent automation. So before we do that, just a bit of an intro to who CGI are. So from a global perspective, we are an end-to-end IT services firm founded in 1976 in Canada, and we've got over 77,000 consultants. We're in a number of countries and have many locations within those countries. One of the other things is we tend to build intellectual property in collaboration with our clients. From a UK perspective, we've got about 350 clients. We've got 6,000 members, and that's an important word because it's what we call our employees. And the reason we call them members is because the majority of us are shareholders of the organisation. And we're very proud of that because it breeds a certain set of behaviours. Lots of offices as well, and 10 industries within the UK. And what does that mean to a Northeast? So I've been lucky enough, through the help that Jen's provided from Invest Newcastle, to engage with Dynamo over the last few months, which has been a very successful membership that we've joined up to so far. And we're working in collaboration with Dynamo across a range of different areas, including cybersecurity, service delivery, healthcare. We've also worked with Tech Market View to look for partners in the Northeast, technology partners, and in the coming weeks, you should see some exciting news about some of the local partners that we've picked up that we're trying to take around the wider UK into Europe and beyond. And we've also been working closely with the Northeast LEP and the CBI. If you move on to the next slide, Simon, please. So what do we do? So as I said at the beginning, we're one of the largest independent IT business consulting and services firm in the world. We carry out strategic IT and business consulting, system integration, and managed IT process services. We operate in pretty much all of the sectors, as you'd imagine a company of our size would do, but why are we different? And this is the most important thing for CGI. We provide local support. So we operate something called a client proximity model. We, wherever possible, try to provide resources to our clients from the local area who understand the local market pressures, and we work in collaboration with those clients. We have deep expertise in each of the industries we operate in. So as I talked about before, I've spent 26 years working in utilities, and we have a lot of people within CGI that have that level of depth within the industries that they work. I've already touched on the intellectual property. The final point on there is we do have that global delivery capability that we can bring together for our clients wherever they are. So before I go on to talk about respond, rebound, reinvent, a couple of things that we're doing in the Northeast that I'm really proud to mention today. The first one is we've just agreed to go into a partnership with Dynamo Northeast around a healthcare technology cluster. And the goal of that technology cluster is to establish the Northeast region as a leader within healthcare technology and best practice. And anyone involved in and around healthcare will start to hear more about this over the coming weeks and months. And I think today's subject around intelligent automation is very relevant given what's happened during the pandemic. The second thing is, for the 4th year running, we will be one of the main sponsors of the Northumbria Water Innovation Festival. And a subject that's close to my heart, given my background in utilities, we will be focusing on net zero and how to boost our journey towards carbon neutral within the Northeast. We're actually working with a number of local organisations that are going to join our sprint, and we'll be issuing out a survey to many Northeast organisations to get you to feed in to that subject. And let's hope that we can make it a really exciting digital festival in September this year. So final 2 slides from me. The first one, a little bit about Respond, Rebound, Reinvent initiative. So at the time the pandemic hit, it was very important to CGI to respond in the right way, both from our own organisation, but also out to the clients and to the general public. So we very much early on focused on, as everybody did, going to the remote working facility. We have about 1,500 people that operate our service delivery centre, and we managed to move them entirely remotely at the same time as having a 300% increase in customer demand. From a STEM camp, the other example we've put in there, I put this in because it's very relevant to me with 2 young children. At the time the pandemic hit, we took what was a face-to-face STEM camp program being run out across the country to be fully digital within 2 weeks. We're now into the 12th week of that. It's not just to our own employees, it's out to the general public, and I encourage anyone with children to have a look at that website. It's a fantastic resource. Going into the rebound side of our initiative, we've done a lot in this stage, and we're sort of coming towards the end of rebound at the moment. So this is about meeting the tactical challenges. So early on in the pandemic, we were seeing things like customers cancelling direct debits en masse because they were concerned about their finances. And we've been working with a number of organisations to introduce new open banking mechanisms that means that where they don't have the taking card payment infrastructure, they can use open banking to get money from their customers to pay their bills. We've also worked very closely with central and local government around key worker applications and the track and trace programme. And then the final one, in terms of reinvent, which I think we're right on the cusp of at the moment. Clearly today we're talking about intelligent automation, which has a big role in this, but also strategic planning. If you asked an organisation in January what their business strategy was and what their portfolio of projects was to deliver that strategy, it would probably be very different from where it is today. And we've been helping a number of clients to re-establish the programmes of work they need to drive forward in the coming months as we go through that reinvention. So the final thing from me is a bit of a personal position on the reinvention. So the first part of this is around the environment. As a keen outdoor enthusiast and cyclist, I've enjoyed riding around the even more empty roads of Northumberland during lockdown. And I think with the loss of lives that have occurred as a result of COVID, we really need to start to think about climate change, because the potential for the loss of lives is even greater. And both from an organisation and a personal perspective, I think we need to build climate change, net zero and the environment into everything we do. Well-being, I'm joining a panel discussion later where this will be one of the topics, but making sure that we all take into account well-being of our own staff, our own families, and making sure again that we use technology to address the well-being agenda. the art of the possible. As someone who's married to a doctor in the NHS, I have seen what people can do, the extraordinary things that people have done during this time. And I think when you look at some of the technology that's been implemented in the space of weeks or months, I think we all need to address going forward what we believe to be possible anymore and start to challenge ourselves. Flexible working. So again, young children, redefining the hours of the working day has completely changed over the last few months, and I think we need to build that into our reinvention. Locality, I think even though we're sitting behind cameras in our homes, there's more of a sense of local community than ever before, whether that's buying locally, employing locally, or just getting to know your neighbours. It's something that's very, very important. And then finally, digital transformation. So, you know, it's no longer a nice to have digital transformation. It's absolutely essential. And digital transformation is not just about the front office. It's not about your website. It's not about how you make your organization look nice to your customers. It's all the way from the front office into the back office, how you engage with your workforce and how you deliver your operating model. And on that basis, I will hand you over to Simon, who will now talk you through our intelligent automation presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for Mark for the introduction, and thank you for the invite to talk. I'm going to talk today about change driven by technology and change driven by COVID-19. And I'll probably talk a bit of history, a bit of the now, and a bit of the future as I go through my presentation. The quote there, "Change is constant," that was actually from 500 BC by a Greek philosopher, Heraclitus. And change is always constant. And for the last 300 years, through various industrial revolutions, we've seen a great deal of change that has affected the way we work, where we live, and where we play, and etc. And so, what we're seeing now, in the last 5 or 6 years, and maybe the last decade, we've seen the start of what we're going to call Industrial Revolution 4, the fourth Industrial Revolution, which I see all about as intelligence. It's about technology that is mimicking human activity or augmenting human activity, more so than maybe some of the previous industrial revolutions. And today, I just want to talk about one part of all that technology there, which is intelligent automation. And we've seen through the pandemic how organizations have been driven to move quicker because of COVID-19 and embrace and further accelerate intelligent automation. Satya Nadella, from CEO of Microsoft, has said his organization's seen 2 years of transformation in 2 months. And certainly within CGI, as Mark said, we've seen a lot of change in a relatively short period of time. But also, as COVID-19 brought other issues and other problems to our clients, they've also embraced automation change. So within hospitals, we've leveraged automation technology to help nurses refocus energy and time, to give them more time to deal with patients. In some of our government clients, because of the COVID-19, the number of unemployment applications has soared, and we use technology to help them automate that work. And in banking, where COVID financial relief applications, hundreds of thousands of companies looking for relief, RPA has been used to automate those processes too. And what I've seen, and it's just an observation, that I can think of only one client who started their automation journey in the last 12, 14 weeks. But many clients who'd already started the journey have accelerated their automation of their processes during this time. So we're almost seeing a widening of the ones who have started and the ones who are yet to start. And that could be cause particular problems as time goes on. What we're really seeing, it's not just about the technology. I see this as a workforce revolution. Intelligent automation is driving digital transformation, that end-to-end digital transformation, which I call digital transformation 2.0. Organizations are moving from being very traditional business operations with broken manual processes, a lot of people dependent, repetitive processes, organizations where they've offshored some of their labor to distant lands, because that work didn't have enough value in the UK. We couldn't pay people enough to do that work. Therefore, that work was moved. Now what's happening, some of that work is being digitized and automated with intelligent automation to create much more frictionless, resilient processes, end-to-end automation, and start to introduce this hybrid workforce of people and technology. The idea isn't to replace all the people. The idea is to remove people from repetitive transactional processing, which generally we're not very good at. We make mistakes, we make errors, people get complaints, we get bored, and we lose concentration. Technology doesn't. It allows that almost like the hamster wheel, just to spin round and spin round and spin round, do the work, do the work, do the work, which allows people to do more higher value work, which then gives a happy workforce and improves those KPIs on the bottom there. Now, obviously, technology is being implemented into organizations for the last 20, 30, maybe 40 years. Enterprise resource planning systems, SAP, Oracle, customer resource management tools such as Microsoft Dynamics, document management systems, Microsoft Office, a whole plethora of technology has been implemented right across many industries. But what most of that technology was very generic, and most processes are very specific. So now we're at a point in history, at a point of technology, where that intelligent automation technology can be configured right down to bespoke, specific processes, whether that be a process that is completely structured and rules based, or in some cases where it's a voice conversation. So that's the opportunity. 50% of the processes are still not being automated. It's shown as a Pareto graph and a long tail. Of course, as time goes on, there'll be a diminishing law of returns. And will we ever automate all processes? Time will tell. That depends on the power of computing and the cost of the technology. I just want to talk about a bit wider than just intelligent automation and the whole stack of how the technology is coming together to create this hybrid workforce, delivering these touchless or near touchless solutions. And what I mean by that, if you go into the Nissan factory in Sunderland, you'll see most of the transactional work is done by physical robots. The people are there as technicians overseeing the robots, and you've got other people who might be having to do work that the robots can't do because they're not dexterous enough, and people need to do it. But the vast majority of the physical transactional work is done by technology. And as we go into our other sectors, healthcare, government, local government, and energy companies, etc., as time goes on, where these organizations are heavily people dependent, not technology dependent, then this technology is going to come and be combined together. What we've seen in the last 5-10 years is that most of this technology has been deployed at point. So you might get some point blockchain, some point advanced analytics, some point RPA. But if you start seeing departments and services end to end, then you'll need to look at combining this technology together to create that hybrid workforce and that touchless service. One of the interesting things I've noticed when we've been automating work over the last few years is that on this chart, you'll see on the left-hand side is what the before automation, where there's a lot of BAU work, fixing errors, compliance and regulatory work, transactional processing, and a small amount of analysis and insight, advice and customer service. As we've deployed the appropriate technology across that process or that service, whether it be RPA, chatbots, or a mixture of that technology, a combination of that technology, we then get to this post-automation where the BAU is drastically reduced. In some processes, the BAU virtually disappears, and there's maybe just some exceptions. That allows much more added time to perform added value of tasks, and depending on the sector and depending on what kind of work it is, be customer care, service care, analysis and insight, diagnostics, etc. And just give you some example, in some of our clients, it's actually freed people up to do other work. So in one of our local government clients in Scotland, it's freed people up to become classroom assistants. And in one of our major policing clients, it's freed people up from being desk-bound, repetitive transactions to actually do much more high-value investigative work. In one of our oil and gas global clients, it's freed people up from a back office to a much more commercial-facing roles. So all that is the work, their existing work was still being done by technology, but it's freed people up to do more interesting things and higher value work for the organisation. And my main point of today is this is what this technology is going to do. It's going to free up hundreds of thousands, millions of hours back to our organisations, so that to repurpose the people to do other things. And anyone who's starting on their automation journey needs to start thinking that now. What I do find is that 10–20% of people being automated, there is other work for them to do naturally. When we get beyond that, then the organisations really need to start thinking about how we're going to repurpose these people. What other products and services are they going to provide? And of course, this isn't going to happen overnight, but I predict that in the next 10–15 years, virtually all repeatable transactional work will be automated. So a bit of a deeper dive on the actual technology now. So this is a slide I pulled together a few years ago. It's been updated a couple of times. And I call this the Intelligent Automation Framework. So this is a framework of technology from on the left-hand side where it's low-code automation, robotic process automation, which tends to be the work we do with our hands, repetitive, rule-based, structured work, where we sit behind computer screens and click, 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 mouse click, keystrokes, copying data from different sources, places to another. That's the sweet spot for those technologies. As we go into organizations and we find more unstructured data, whether it be PDFs, unstructured web forms, emails, images, videos, voice, then we need other technology. And on the right-hand side, in those three columns, is the other technology, from relatively simple optical character recognition technology, which is now being built, machine learning is getting into it to improve it, which is helping people, organizations that still have lots of handwritten forms that have to get rekeyed into systems, to take away that heavy lifting from humans by scanning the forms into a system and letting the OCR read it and ingest it into the appropriate system. Intelligent document processing, where emails and all organizations get lots of emails. We're using this technology to actually read and respond to emails, simple chatbots, which we've seen, and then moving through to the more complex, more advanced technologies of machine learning, where in one of our MOD clients, we're using machine learning to look for patterns in teraflops of data a day that is looking for cybercrime and cybercrime triggers. And that allows the people to do the investigation, not the looking. So it's, again, doing the heavy lifting of the people to find patterns of cybercrime. And then onto artificial intelligence and beyond, really, and depending on what the process is, what the data is, and certainly in this end, we've got sort of fully capable virtual agents now. If you go down to CGI's service desk in Bridgend, we're using IP Soft Amelia to actually answer phone calls and have conversations. So the technology is moving all the time and developing all the time. The algorithms, the computing power, the actual companies themselves are developing technology all the time. Most companies start with RPA, but in terms of the Ministry of Defence, they jump straight down in the deep end because of their need for a machine learning project. And when we start automation in clients, I always talk about what are your drivers for automation. You could say, well, we want to automate processes, we're going to want to save money. But generally, that's not the reason. I think some of those reasons are change from COVID-19. I think many organizations now are looking much more for business resilience than they once were. If organizations had lots of people doing work and people came to work, then the resilience wasn't an issue. Now people are having to work from home, many are shielding, a percentage of people were able to work, and therefore I've been told by a number of our clients that backlogs are increasing and that they're now looking at introducing automation to increase that resilience. I've mentioned process backlogs in many organizations. I think morale of people have been working hard over the last few months. If we can automate some of that work, their morale will improve. And of course, regulation is changing all the time due to COVID-19, and therefore that will be driving demand in certain parts of organizations, which would make sense to look at automation. So the drivers are different in every organization. When we review processes or departments for automation, we score the process or department against these drivers. So we can score them and say, okay, if this process is going to be automated, would it improve business resilience? Would it improve commercial competition, etc., and give it a score, rather than just saying this is the ROI. So what does intelligent automation mean for CGI? So we've been automating internally since 2015. We've automated hundreds of processes in various parts of CGI UK, globally as well. We've invested heavily in working closely with a lot of partners there, including the RPA partners of Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, UiPath, onto some of the BPM, business process management partners of Appian, and onto chatbots as artificial solutions, IP Soft, etc. We work in automation in many industries, from health and financial services. Central government is starting to scale this now, and I should mention that there's a new public sector framework called Automation Services from the Cabinet Office. CGI are proud to be on it. It's open to all the public sector. It's a £100 million framework over 4 years. That is all online. You go online, you put in what you require, and then there's like a mini competitions. And that's actually open to central government, local government, policing, all the public sector. And then CGI provide end-to-end services, from front-end consulting services, which most of the work thus far has come with engaging with clients, explaining the art of the possible of automation, explaining how to get on the journey, what does that journey look like, how does that impact their people, creating business strategies, doing discovery days, botathons, process assessments, and then from beyond that, actually delivering the automation, delivering the end-to-end solutions, and then beyond that, providing the managed service, the feeding and watering, the support of the delivered solution. And over the number of years, we've automated within those main business applications you can see there, but also many others. And we don't actually see, we haven't come across any in the UK that we haven't been able to automate. Though I did hear of one in Germany, which was a bespoke system application that the customer had built. We couldn't automate, but that hasn't been the case in the UK. So how do we commence an automation journey? Well, one of my mantras is think big. What is your strategy? What is your vision? What is your plan? What is your organization going to look like in the next 5, 10, 15 years? And then start small, find some good use cases for automation and quick wins to get people on board, get people embracing automation and scaling quickly. And scaling quickly, you need to put in all the building blocks around the hosting, the technology, the security, the governance, the funding, the change management to enable organization to scale quickly. And so we have a number of starting points, as I said, discovery days, botathons, strategy assessments, process discoveries, which then leads into these automation projects, which tend to be initially some really good quick win processes, then looking for a longer roadmap, looking for the business case for that longer roadmap, looking to get into what we call an automation factory. And that can take as little as 3 months. We had a Belgian client that went from a standing start to an automation factory in 3 months. And other clients, it's taking 12, 18 months and 2 years, depending on the appetite, depending on the pace they want to move at. But as I say, as we've gone through COVID-19, the clients that have started are accelerating their journey, whereas ones that haven't started just haven't started. So that's how we'd encourage organizations to start with some front-end consultancy, some discovery, some strategy work to understand what the art of the possible is, what's the business case for their organization. And so just to reiterate, why automate in a post-COVID-19 world? Well, what I'm seeing from speaking to clients and speaking to other colleagues within CGI is that organizations have got a fall in customer service, complaints are increasing, they've got rising backlogs, there's a need to be more resilient and more scalable. Because people have been working so hard for the last 12, 14 weeks, they've got falling employee morale, no one's been on holiday, they can't go on holiday. And in many organizations, costs are rising. And so there's a more compelling requirement in more organizations to begin their automation journey. What are the barriers? You know, I see many organizations have started the automation journey. They've automated a few processes. In some cases, they've built a center of excellence. But what they see is that it's very hard to scale. And some of the challenges around culture, we as people, we don't like change. We've always done it this way. We don't want to bring anything new into our workplace. We feel comfortable as it is. There's anxiety about automation. You know, through sci-fi films, we see what robots are like, and we automatically get robotic and automation anxiety. So I think, you know, that's one of the reasons why to go through see it as a journey, to get people on board, to consult and communicate with people, understand that the automation is not going to take their jobs. You know, recessions take people's jobs, as we've seen in the press in the last few weeks. Technology doesn't take people's jobs. Another barrier to scaling is the shortage of talent, and that's right across the board. That's about shortage of people who truly understand this, shortage of people in C-suites level who understand it, shortage of people in HR departments who understand it, shortage of people who can actually do the technical delivery. And so it's right the way through, and as time goes on, more and more people will need to be upskilled in this space. Many organizations can't scale it because they don't have a strategy. They don't have an intelligent automation strategy that says, okay, we're going to automate these low-hanging fruit, quick win processes. We're going to then move into more higher value processes. These are the drivers for automation. So we're going to do in 3 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time. And many organizations like that. And another observation is that organizations have many broken processes. And another, the organisations that again have embraced automation first were the ones that have been on their Lean Six Sigma journey longest. So their processes have been standardised, they've been leaned, they've been streamlined, which allows automation to happen more readily than organisations that have to optimise and re-engineer their processes prior to automation. And I just want to give you an idea and a flavour of some of the work that we're doing in the public sector. Interestingly, a lot of some of the organisations that embraced automation first, when we started speaking to clients back in 2016, were some of the large police forces. They've got lots of repeatable transactional work. In one of the National Crime Agency, they receive a lot of alerts from global organisations, Interpol, Europol, etc., and they have to be disseminated to the right organisation within the UK. Literally, there are thousands and thousands of alerts a day. There was so much work that the organisation within the department in the NCA weren't processing them all. Now we've deployed technology, robotic automation technology, to do that work, and we've automated the process end to end. And now that's scaling across more and more processes with that organisation. Within local government, we working in some Scottish local government organisations, and again they started with some relatively straightforward processes like discretionary payments, and now they're looking at their more high volume processes in their finance departments. And then in other organisations that maybe started 2 or 3 years ago, we've gone through that initial stage. We've done some key processes, and now we've built some centre of excellence where in some cases CGI provide all the resources, and within some cases the organisation supplies all the resources and CGI applies the technology. So it depends on the organisation, the flavour of support CGI supply. In our own organisation, we've got a very large service desk with nearly 1,500 agents, thousands of clients and hundreds of thousands of users. It's in 3 locations in South Wales. Back in 2016, 2017, we started to think about how can we really start to channel shift all these calls that are coming into this contact centre. Channel shift them, some of them were going to email, to self-service, self-help and heal, but still 65% of them were voice. And we've been moving through a program of work to introduce robotic process automation to try and reduce the amount of the call time and the wrap time to make the agents more efficient, increasing self-service, but also in the last couple of years looking at conversational AI chatbots, virtual agents, to actually answer the calls. And that is progressing. To start with, it was simple sort of password reset type calls. That's increasing, and the plan is to scale that even more, and ultimately in the future hopefully get the number of calls down to 20-25% through the use of a range of technologies, not one technology, but a range of technologies. At that point, I'll hand over to Mark.
Thanks very much, Simon. Yeah, so the robot here asked where to start. I think over the years, we've seen experiences where people have started on automation journeys and put RPA, what was historically called RPA, around bad processes, and they've had bad experiences around it. We also know some people have been wanting to get on with their automation journey, and because of lack of engagement in either the IT department or the business department, they haven't got it right. And this is why the bit that I really have to agree with Simon, the people bit of it is the most important bit. So engaging at a strategic level and trying to make sure that when automation is kicked off, people are already thinking about how to engage with the workforce to drive them towards higher value work. That's where we've seen the most success around automation. I think the other point to say is that these projects do not need to be significant. Some organizations will come to us and they'll want us to hold their hand through it, but will want to do the RPA development themselves. We might get involved in upskilling, we might get involved in training. Some people will want it from us as a service, and that's options as well. But the size of the organization shouldn't really matter. If you go into automation with the right mindset, you will be doing it in a way that you're delivering value regardless of the size of what you're doing. And I think the last slide on here is just one of the examples of where we've seen, you know, really good engagement from clients, regardless of where they are on their automation journey. We've actually kicked off things that we call botathons or discovery days, where we get a range of different people across business and IT. In some cases, we might pick a mock process, something that we've created before, and we'll actually show them just how quick and easy it is to create that automation. In other cases, and this requires more preparation, the client themselves will provide to us their broken process or their process that they want to be automated, and we'll have a look at, can we optimize that process, and then can we automate it? And these sort of engagements can be quite useful because they'll help to drive forward with the strategy with our clients. But I guess the key thing to say about automation is, you know, people will be at different stages of that journey, and the size of the organization should not matter. Over time, these repetitive tasks will end up being automated. And if you want to know more, please reach out, have a conversation. So I've seen there's a few questions on here. I'm just going to try and... So just in terms of, I think there's a question on here from Nick around disagreeing with the point around the people side of it. I think, yeah, when it came up, and I guess the experience that we've had from people that engage strategically in automation is that they're already starting to think about where they can use those employees to drive out higher value. They're already thinking about whether those employees can drive out new business. So I don't disagree that there could be challenges where they are risking people's jobs, but the way that we tend to adopt it through strategic automation readiness, that's not experiences we tend to see. And then there was a question around the smaller startups, and I think that very much comes along to the point I was saying before, where the first thing that you need to do is engage with someone who understands the automation framework, and then work with those organizations to determine what skills you want to keep in-house. You know, if you do have developers and you want to redeploy those developers, that's something that you can do. I mean, Simon, do you want to say anything more about that, about how smaller organizations?
Yeah, I mean, my wife works for a small tutor agency, and I've spoken to them over a number of years, and they've gone from being an organisation that had working from telephone books through to implementing a website to having a database which they combined together. And they virtually digitized and automated their process end to end. And there's only 5 or 6 people who work for that organization. So most of those people aren't doing transactional work now. Most of them are trying to find new clients.
Exactly. So it really is about that top-down strategic plan and thinking about the workforce from day one, not leaving it as an afterthought, I think is the key message.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other questions, and I can see we've got 2 minutes left. We will share the slides with the group. I think Simon could talk about this forever, and I can see that maybe Nick and Simon should have a conversation about some of the questions going backwards and forwards. But thank you for taking the time to listen to us.
Yeah, thanks very much.